All right, you're watching Live Now. I'm Austin Westfall. This is the QR code you can scan if you want to send your question in. We'll be showing these a little bit later on in the night. We'll be showing a couple of them to Jamie Copenhaver in a moment here. Before we head to Jamie, what I want to do is I want to head to Fox 10 Phoenix's Megan Spector, who's been tracking the Guthrie investigation so closely. What are you seeing on the ground tonight, Megan?
Hey, well, at this point, there's not really a lot going on, at least here at Nancy's property, investigation-wise. What we're really waiting for is just these DNA results to come back from different things. So we know that the Sheriff's Department was investigating DNA found on a glove that matched the suspect's gloves he was wearing in that video. It was found about 2 miles from Nancy's home. They were putting it through the FBI's CODIS system to try and find a match. We do know that didn't pick up an initial match. The other piece of DNA that seems to be what I would think a big lead in this case, the Sheriff's Department said they found DNA on Nancy's property. When they said that, they specifically said that it did not belong to Nancy or someone in close contact with her. They said they're working to figure out who it belongs to, analyzing that DNA as well. They didn't specify where on the property it was, but again, these pieces of DNA that they're analyzing, along with that video surveillance of the suspect and the FBI releasing that partial description of the suspect, these seem to be the biggest leads at this point in this investigation, at least to what they're sharing with the public.
Yeah, speaking of what they're sharing with the public, the sheriff has been giving no large press conferences to the media at large. He's been giving one-on-one interviews to a number of media outlets, including Fox 10. What are you guys learning from the sheriff in the most recent round of interviews that we've been getting from him? And is there indication that we will get a full-on press conference anytime soon?
Yeah, so in regards to a press conference, the short answer is no, we don't know when that's coming. The Sheriff's Department has kind of repeatedly said that they will not be holding a press conference until something big does happen in this case. So we're waiting for that, to hear from him in an official setting. Fox 10 did have the chance to speak with the sheriff. A big portion of that interview was learning more about this DNA evidence. Again, hearing that there was DNA evidence found on Nancy's property and on a glove nearby. Those sounded like really big pieces of information that they're starting to analyze. That was a big part of the focus, along with him, the sheriff, doubling down on his statement that the family has been cleared as suspects. That was another really big piece of information that came through. Up until then, it sounded like the sheriff had kind of been saying that anyone and everything is still an option and possibility, but he did say that family members and spouses have been cleared.
Megan, you reported in Tucson before reporting in Phoenix. You worked at KVOA. It's the same station, by the way, that Savannah Guthrie reported for. You know, what's your level of knowledge about the area that this is all happening in? I mean, surely you were in and around many parts of Tucson, but now this assignment heading you back down to southern Arizona. What has this been like for you, seeing everything that's transpired in this quiet community in recent weeks?
Yeah, well, I think you described the community very nicely. It is a quiet community. It's the foothills. That's what it's known as, the Catalina foothills. It's a beautiful, very nice part of southern Arizona, and that's kind of the common theme that when we've spoken to neighbors, too, they all just say, this doesn't happen here. This doesn't happen in this community. You know, it's very residential. There's a lot of nature surrounding these homes, but again, it's separate from main roads. It's kind of tucked away. It's very quiet.
All right, Megan Spector, we appreciate the time. We'll be checking in soon. Appreciate you. So what we're going to do next is, by the way, a live look at the Guthrie home. It's getting darker out there, just past 6:30 Mountain Standard Time. It is time to check in with law enforcement expert Jamie Copenhaver. Jamie, of course, has been tracking this story so closely with us these past few days. Jamie is here with me. You know, I'm just going to go over and I'm just going to reset with some of the details that we've been learning today, Jamie. The FBI has reached out to authorities in Mexico in relation to the Guthrie case. Fox News Digital has that. I'm also reading that Sheriff Nano says they do not believe that Guthrie was taken to Mexico. So the sheriff also released a statement saying that they have received a lot of requests on topics including working with Mexican authorities, also the utilization of a polygraph test, which further reporting, we've since learned that the polygraph tests had nothing to do with the Guthrie case. I want to focus on Mexico with you for a moment here. So They say they are not confirming any details regarding anything in Mexico so far, but if we're just kind of looking at the proximity of this case to the border, Jamie, is it normal for investigators to be looking at potential Mexican ties or if anything went from southern Arizona across the border after this case transpired?
Yeah, I mean, let's put our common sense hat on for just a moment. That house is 12 miles from the Mexican border, Austin. If you read into this latest letter released by TMZ and what that letter contained, that individual indicated that he had seen Nancy Guthrie across the border in Mexico, and even, alleged that them or they, multiple people responsible for her kidnapping, that he possibly knew who she was. So, a little mixed signals from the sheriff, but I think it's a tactical, it's a tactic that he's using. Keep in mind, if you're in Mexico with Nancy Guthrie, you don't want the heat on you throughout the media. So he's, in my opinion, I think he may be downplaying it until they can verify if that letter is actually valid.
So would it make sense for the FBI to actually put boots on the ground in Mexico for any reason?
Yeah, I mean, FBI, I don't think they've made an official statement. We've heard rumors that they've certainly reached out to the Mexican government and the Mexican federales, if you will. Austin, I've got to tell you, been in the business for 30 years, I would suggest that we have maybe some special agents on the ground working with the Mexican authorities to try to maybe vet some of this information out. Especially, let's get the word out that Nancy Guthrie is missing from the United States, perhaps prompting more tips.
Would they be looking for Nancy herself across the border or more likely a suspect?
Depending what leads they may have, we just don't know what they are looking at, what they have in their quivers in terms of evidence or leads. We're forecasting, right? Potentially a lead has came in through the last demand letter that may have pinned down a location or an area. And certainly, I would want special agents there on the ground in Mexico working with our Mexican partners to try to cultivate maybe some witnesses, whether it's ear or eyewitnesses, perhaps to pin down a location or people that may be suspects.
We've been getting in questions from viewers. Avery and Richfield sending this in. Have investigators ruled out any major theories, such as ransom motives versus personal targeting? Do we have any level of clarity on that, Jamie?
We received that first ransom letter. I will point out, we haven't, they've not come out and qualified whether it's a legit ransom or not, right? That's how the case is purported to be. So we have to go hear on the news as to what's being reported. But they certainly made an arrest in the second ransom letter. That turned out to be a hoax. We know that occurred out in California. Here's the odd part about it. We've not received any other information on additional ransom letters. We're hearing from a potential witness, but nothing ransom-wise. Savannah had came out on one of the videos that said, we're ready to pay, indicating that they had some communication potentially. But I think it's odd that we've not had any additional ransom letters released to the general public to even make a comment on that.
As I've been kind of tracking this lately, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos said that the Guthrie case is far from being cold. The word cold case is kind of starting to get thrown around a little bit. He says it's not cold. As he says, 400 investigators continue to work on thousands of tips and leads. In general, Jamie, what defines a cold case? What's the line between an active investigation with active leads and what you would refer to as a case that's gone cold?
I mean, let's qualify that. We have certainly Fox Digital. We have Fox reporters on the ground that are doing outstanding reporting. So, there are newly facts being reported by the media that's being either leaked or released by the sheriff's office or the law enforcement officials. This is nowhere near a cold case. As long as they're getting credible or any tips in, they're going to follow up on every one of those tips. To qualify that, Austin, we just learned recently they sent out special agents to gun stores to try to track down a list of 40 people that may have purchased this certain type of weapon. We know that just today, Walmart came out and announced they're assisting in that search for any items may have been purchased at Walmart. So we're a long ways from it being a cold case. The sheriff has taken a lot of criticism, right? But you've got to support the sheriff in terms of he's going to continue the case. They're going to continue to investigate. And, he echoed that again today with 400 investigators on the ground. And Austin, I think that's a very conservative estimate there's a lot more investigators that we're not hearing about.
Let's say that something like a backpack was bought at a Walmart store. Let's say something like gloves were bought at a Walmart store, or a jacket. Can a department store look through transactions that have been made, whether it's with a card or whether it's with cash, and can they line those types of items up and then perhaps surmise and look at security footage from around the time that items like that were purchased? Is that an avenue they can take?
Absolutely, yes, and they are. FBI came out and identified that backpack and, suggested it could have been purchased at a local Walmart. So, inventory control from these retail stores would suggest they're going to know what was sold, when it was sold, and the brand name of any item sold. So, you're going to send special agents to that Walmart or the Walmarts in that area, and you're going to comb through hours of video footage. Keep in mind, Walmart is very good. They're almost as good as the TSA. They have video cameras and surveillance cameras everywhere in that store. And they're going to go and have to, it's painstaking. They're going to spend a lot of time looking at what item was purchased when. If it's in the queue, we know that it's all electronically digital, so everything's logged in terms of inventory. And they're going to go look at hours of video to try to see who was in line making a purchase of that item when it was purchased.
All right, let's get to Jeff. Jeff, with this question, he's in the capital of California. Don't you think that the FBI would keep any DNA matches a secret so that the bad guys don't head for the hills? Why would they give them the heads up and let them know that they know who they are, Jamie?
Jeff, excellent question, and you're right on point. A lot of criticism to the sheriff for not doing the pressers and not releasing certain information. Jeff's right on point. You don't want to release certain information that if there are multiple people involved in this kidnapping, that would telegraph that, hey, we have DNA, we're on your trail. I think the bad guys in this case have enough heat already, right? So, the sheriff and the FBI is going to be super, super measured in terms of what they release, when they release it. And quite candidly, you don't want information like that out. It's going to get, the bad guys are watching. They perhaps are watching this broadcast now. And you want to keep them in a guessing game to continue to keep them either A, hunkered down or moving about the cabin, if you will.
So one more thing. When we track the FBI and when we track the Pima County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Chris Nanos has been talking about what we do know, and he really hasn't been giving any major updates unless he has something to share. This was something I heard him say yesterday. He's not going to be giving any wide-ranging press conferences until they actually have something to share. And we have been seeing that. Anytime they do have an update, they usually will send out either a written statement on social media or they will give an official statement to a local affiliate or to someone in the national news. Just got this question in from Brooke in Atlanta. Why have we not heard how the kidnapper broke into Nancy's home, Jamie?
So let's go back to the questionable ransom letters. Are they legit? Are they fake? Are they real? Here's the deal. There's certain things in investigations you cannot release, such as how the house was entered. Was the door unlocked? It was a forced entry? Here's the deal. You must keep things out of the media and out of the public realm that only the suspect or suspects would know in this case. So, perhaps if you're interviewing a witness and the witness says, hey, I know the trim was busted around the front door, and that coincides with the evidence at Nancy Guthrie's house, that's a pretty good sign because you haven't released it in the media that witness has firsthand information. So that's exactly why the sheriff has been measured in his press conferences and what information's been released. You can't give that up.
Looks like we've got one more coming in from Carla in Detroit. What tangible steps are investigators taking to ensure this investigation reaches a clear resolution, and what mechanisms exist to hold law enforcement or prosecutors accountable if the case remains open without charges or formal closure?
I think news shows just like this, that sort of puts the pressure on law enforcement. It continues to capture American, and let's not forget, it's America's grandmother that's missing, right? So everyone's captivated. We're on the edge of our seat. So in terms of credibility from the sheriff, he's got to make the public happy, but he's going to do it on his terms. Number two, in terms of what they're doing, we're seeing it play out every single day. We've seen the searches. Just recently, we saw a statement released by the sheriff where they located 16 different pairs of gloves, one of suspicion, right? So that was sent to the Florida lab. We reported on that here. And the neighborhood canvas, we haven't really heard a lot about that, but just imagine you have a group of agents and deputies and investigators going door to door, looking at ring door video, interviewing witnesses. Did they hear or see anything? So we've seen that play out. But more importantly, the recent information on the Walmart potential connection and what they're doing with Walmart to try to identify the purchaser of that backpack.
In your experience, working on a high-profile case like this, there's been, as you've alluded to, intense interest in this case from a national and an international perspective. We were talking with TMZ earlier today, and their executive producer, Michael Babcock, was talking about the idea that eventually these types of things, sadly, they do lose steam. Is there going to come a point where the media starts to pull crews away from Tucson, Arizona, and will, if eventually there is less attention on this case, if there aren't any major updates coming, if the media starts to pull back and we start to see less coverage of this, can that in some way change the investigation, hinder the investigation? Could it help the investigation with less media prying?
Also, let me tell you firsthand, those investigators, they're on the ground, boots on the ground, working this case 18, 20 hours a day. If the American people lose interest or give up on this case, I can assure you the agents of the FBI, the Pima County Sheriff's Office will not lose interest in the case. They're going to work this case until every stone is unturned. They're going to work the case until every lead is followed up. So, in short, to answer your question, no. We hear a lot of these cases in the media and in the news cycle, right? They're cold cases that have went cold, Austin, because there are no new tips, no new leads. So, you're not filing those away forever. You're filing them away until you hear additional information, leads, or tips that would reopen that case. I've got to tell you right now, the viewers at home, this case is far from being a cold case, and the Sheriff's Office and the special agents of the FBI will not lose interest in this case until it's either resolved or flushed out until they can flush out no more.
Law enforcement expert Jamie Copenhaver, good to see you. I'm sure we'll be checking in soon.